Dan, maybe you could start us off by telling us. Well, the reason I noticed you and invited you is because you have started up the citizen journalism video community on Google Plus. So
Right. You can hear me, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's something that I've been doing here in New Hampshire because of the role that New Hampshire plays in American politics and all the media coverage that is associated with that. I just took to the streets and took advantage of the fact that all these political candidates, presidential candidates, were essentially in my backyard. So I had quick, ready access to the likes of, Mitt Romney and various other candidates that came through, especially early last year, 2012.
I just wanted to interject. There was an interesting point about audio there, where we tried to interview a lot of people around YouTube, but because we work with a lot of marginalised groups like refugee and asylum seekers, ex-offenders, people with disabilities and stuff like that, we've found that having Audio Boo on board as a partner has been really useful, because what it allows you to do is always capture what's going on.
And we crowdsourced planning objections on Green and Leith, and then he says, "I'd like to find out more." I think he's going to type more there, but I don't know whether he's saying they have done that on one occasion or whether they do that as a standard.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I know that it does happen, and I wouldn't want to give the impression that I don't think it does. But
No.
example, which was fairly big and looked at a lot of UK hyperlocals. We saw hardly any of this stuff.
Hi Jerome, I'm Jamie Summerfield. I do a hyperlocal site for a town called Stone in Staffordshire, which is called A Little Bit of Stone, and I've been doing that site for, blimey, 2.5 years now.
The cool thing about web is that you can choose between a lot of alternatives. So you can make audio, video, text, photos. And just as Ali said, it really depends on the topic and when it makes sense to make video. And I think that's the important thing to think about that.
Interesting.
I mean, with Audioboo, I've been playing with it a bit, and what you can do is if you subscribe to your Audioboos through iTunes, you get the MP3s, and then if you want to do kind of say what Dan's doing and make a little kind of audio like an audio slideshow, so you're using images on top of that audio just to make it a bit visually sort of arresting, then you could just sort of grab some pictures and overlay it.
Commercial local news sector, and specifically the crisis in the commercial local news sector, but now I'm very much interested in what might come to take its place as it declines and as the market withdraws from local news, really, and which is where my interest in
video is that as opposed to text, your stories can't be lifted without accreditation. If you've got it sealed in a bit of video, then all that can be done is people play that video.
As a former journalist, is always to do a rounded story. Is always to get the various sides of it. Sorry, I'm just looking at a comment from Ali that's just pinged up. I'll look at that in a second. Ali, thank you. So I'm always conscious of covering it, from both or all sides.
At all. And I've also no idea how big the story is. Then if you go through it could be 1,000 words, it could just be the same amount of words almost. But that would be an interesting thing to look at in interview, potentially.
No, it would. I think that the kind of cross-fertilization between the blogs themselves and the various forms of social media on which people who produce those blogs are active is a really, really key area. It reminds me actually of one of the other kind of findings that we had, which was, to me, kind of surprising, but I think also might be explained by this kind of it happens on Twitter or it happens on Facebook phenomenon.